So kind of growing up, a big part of my faith was my dad. So my dad grew up with an alcoholic father.
Yeah, right.
And kind of he had this choice, do I go down that path or do I change my path? And he actually chose to follow Jesus, which was huge for me because it would have been easy for him not to do that. That was hard. And I'm sure all of his family was like, what the heck are you doing?
And you watched him make that transformation.
And I watched him make the choice.
And then fast forward to now you're in college, and what happens?
So a good buddy of mine who was part of Young Life called me up and it was like, you have to come with me. He's like, I'm trying to check out this new trip called Beyond, which for the Young Life has a bunch of camps. And Beyond is where you basically go into the woods. And he was like, I have to do this before I can invite kids along. He goes, but you need to come. God's telling me I have to bring you. So I went with him and some other people who were really just trying to check it out to see what it was all about before they took kids there. And if you know what Beyond is, you're in British Columbia and you just go to the mountains that come out of the water. So I spent a week out there. Yeah. And at the time, so my dad was then, when I was in college, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Wow. So that had been a tough period for me. And that was partly why my buddy was like, you need to come with me. And then it was crazy because all this stuff happened. That wasn't coincidence. Some of the people on the trip had dealt with their fathers having cancer. One, their father passed away. One, it was just diagnosed. So all these things happened. I was like, okay, this isn't happenstance. And then my buddy was like, you have to come, because I was kind of fighting him. And he's like, no, you're coming. He's one of those people who I've known forever. So I'm like, okay, if he told me to do it, I'm going to do it.
That's great. We need good friends like that who will look us up and break through for us. And so you gave your life to Christ, and then you got the phone call when you were in college.
Yep. So I had to come home, and my mom had asked the doctor, I have a kid in school, what would you do? And the doctor said I would call him and tell him to come home now. So I got the call. So then I took a flight. I went to college just outside of Portland, so I got the flight back to Seattle, and then it was for weeks and weeks, like my family lived in the waiting room of the hospital, just waiting. He was kind of touch and go for a long time.
Your sister's with you now, right? Wave your hand.
She's down here somewhere.
God bless you, but it's a great sister. And you told a funny story about, this series we're ending today on friendship, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but somebody sent you something while you were at the hospital that was just like, oh, made your day.
Yeah, so we'll talk, I think, about because one of the questions is if someone's going through something, how do you deal with them? What do you say? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm probably jumping forward.
That's all right.
But my response is there's nothing that's perfect, because a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what to say. And my answer is just say something. It doesn't matter. It's just the thought that you're saying something rather than turning around and going the other way or something. So so my sister and I, we're super tight. So we're sitting there and living in this hospital, waiting room, and somebody sent us Cheese Whiz. Cheese Whiz and club crackers. And I have to say, that was like one of the greatest things ever, because we're sitting there, pretty depressed and down, and we're sitting there, eating Cheese Whiz. And I'll never forget that and it seems pretty stupid. You're like, okay, what a stupid thing to send somebody Cheese Whiz.
Whose dad is dying of cancer.
Exactly, But that's kind of the thing that I would tell people when they say, okay, what do I do if I know someone who's going through a tough thing? You can send somebody Cheese Whiz. That seems so stupid and dumb, yet it made an amazing day on us because we had so much fun, because things have been so negative.
Yeah. You started coming to Church on the Ridge. Here's one of your early pictures that we have in our church directory. Can you throw the picture of his family? Yeah, there it is. Look at that beautiful family, 2 little kids, and you're coming to Church on the Ridge, but you're not all in yet. What was going on in your life?
So when I was on the mountain in British Columbia, I felt like God basically told me that my dad was going to die, and he did eventually pass away from cancer.
At 51 years old.
At 51. Yeah. And so part of my thing was, I was like, okay, you need to get baptized. And I fought that for years and years and years.
You're coming here, and you're leading a community group.
Yeah, I led a community group for just many, many years.
And we're going through a book called Soul Revolution. Anybody remember that book, 66, The Experience of Soul Revolution? All right, he's one of the inaugurated that thing, helped us, perfect it as we move along.
Yeah, so I was meeting with a good friend, and we were going through that together.
You got a running partner and the whole deal?
And one of the hard parts was that last 10%. And what I realized is I was holding off on this because I never felt like I was perfect or good enough to get baptized. Yeah. And I realized then finally through praying and stuff together, the answer I got was, don't be stupid, just go forward and I'll take care of everything. So I felt like Jesus was saying, dude, just do it, and then I'll take care of the rest, but you need to make the first step. And I had sat there for years saying, I'm not perfect, but the reality is nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So don't let that hold you back. Don't let something kind of stupid be a stumbling block to making the step.
Yeah, it's great. So your family's part of the church. Your wife taught in our preschool. In fact, she probably taught some of these kids about Jesus that we heard get baptized.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a CPA.
Yeah, great.
Bean counter.
Yes. Well, it's an important job,
yep.
Right? Yes. But you're also this outdoors guy, and you got this buddy, Brian, who you and him have traveled the world together. Fast forward now, you're living life, and what happened in, show the next slide. Yeah. This is some of your outdoor exploits. Talk about some of those, because you're a stud, man. Brian and you took me to Mount Rainier, and we're going to do, just go to 10,000 feet because you thought the pastor will take care, right? And I've got my stuff. We're gonna hike up and ski down, and I got my stuff, and I get about 200, 300 steps, and my backpack is weighing me down. I can't carry stuff, and this guy, unbelievable. Hey, Charlie, let me take that. He puts it on his back. We get another couple hundred steps. Hey, let me take that. By the time I'm holding my sandwich, is about all I got when we get to the top.
Humility was learned that day by Pastor Charlie, because he did not like that very much, but it helped him go further, which is a tough thing to realize, but sometimes you have to be humble, and then people can help you, and you go a lot further than if you try to do it yourself.
And right now in your life, you are forced. You told me you can't even zip up your jacket.
Yep.
And when I say forced, you already knew that message of humility, that lesson of humility. And it has allowed you to allow others to be a blessing to you when you can't do it yourself. And you've hiked some of the tallest peaks. And all of a sudden, you and Brian, you want to share anything? You've got this guy. Is he a stud?
Yep. Yeah, I've climbed all around the world, soloed Everest. It takes a team. It takes trust. There's no one I trust more, and I've climbed with you, and those are complete opposite.
You put it, Charlie, at the end of the rope, and pray.
No, not at the end. That's too dangerous. We put you in the middle so we can watch you.
Wherever. I think at one point he carried me on his back, and that was like, okay.
Well, even through chemo, I remember, we would get out, and he's, still stronger than anybody. I'm like, we're getting on some sketchy things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my gosh, dude, if you fall, your mom's going to kill me, because it'll be my fault.
Something began to take place in your body physically as you'd start to get to altitude. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so in 2010, I started having, altitude sickness pretty bad. So
describe that, because most of us have never been at high enough.
So basically, when you go up high, it puts pressure on your brain and your skull. So, I had, as we'll get to in a second, I had a tumor growing there, so it would put pressure. So there's no place for things to go because I had a massive tumor in my head. And so I started getting headaches, and puking was my big thing. So I used to joke that I was going to try to puke on all 7 continents. I didn't quite get there, but I puked a lot. And one of the bummers was we went to Elbrus in Russia together, which is the highest mountain in Europe. And I got to 16,500 feet, which is a lot taller than Rainier. And I just started puking my guts out. And I had this rule that if you puke, if you just can't puke 30 minutes after. So if you start puking every 30 minutes, you need to get off the mountain immediately. And so I was puking too close to each other. So I had to get down. So I had to go back down. So I missed this opportunity. We fly to Russia, kind of once in a life opportunity to go climb this mountain. And I had to turn around because I just couldn't do it because the altitude was destroying me.
You also lit the tent on fire.
Yeah, I don't tell that story, but yeah. When I came back, nobody was helping me cook get the stoves going, and I did start a tent on fire.
That's not part of this story.
Do you want me to go sit down?
You're in 2011 November. You're having coffee. What happened there?
So I'm in a Starbucks. I'm with a coworker, and we're trying to meet with a new possible client. So we're sitting there, and then I had a grand mal seizure, which, if you don't know, a grand mal seizure, basically you go black and pass out, and then you end up on the floor, and then when you think of a seizure, you think someone convulsing. So I'm doing that in the middle of a Starbucks. I was at the U Village, so they took me to University of Washington Hospital, which wasn't very far away. So I woke up in the ambulance, and the people are telling me what happened, and I had no clue what was going on.
And the doctor comes in. Can we show the next slide?
So then they said, okay, we're going to do these tests. So I had an MRI done a little bit later.
Is there a tennis ball over there, Brian? Oh, throw that up here, sis. Thanks.
So that's the size of the tumor that they found in my head. And the funny moment was I go in there after the scan, and there's just a radiologist, or not he's a neurologist, but he seemed like he was fresh out of school. So he's trying to say these words to me. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to sugarcoat this. I see this scan, and that thing is huge. And I know that's not supposed to be that way. So just get it to the point. So finally he got to the point. He was just trying to be nice. And I was like, dude, that's bad. Just tell me. So then I went and talked to the neurosurgeon, and they're like, okay, we just need to get this thing out. So then within a couple of weeks, I go into surgery, which you can if you look closely, you can see my scar from the surgery.
Go back one slide. There we go. We got the news. You're going in for surgery. This is him and his family. Before that, we brought you up here, back in the old building again, and prayed over you. We're believing God. Hey, we believe in a miracle-working God. We believe that God can heal the sick. We read it in the Bible, and we see it. And so we did all the things right. The Bible says to pray, anoint with oil, pray the prayer of faith, get the elders to lay hands. We did all that, and yet, go to the next slide there. Yeah, they cut you open.
Yep.
And talk to us about what they had to do.
So they, went in there, took the tumor out. They couldn't get all of it, so there was still a little bit of tumor left. And typically, if you want to have complete healing from a brain tumor, they have to get 100% of it. They didn't get 100% of it because usually it gets up to or grows into some of your healthy tissue in your brain. They only could cut so far.
So then it's some treatments, right? Okay, we can't get it all through surgery, so we're going to have to...
chemo was the next thing. So I instantly went on chemotherapy for the fall. After that, I had surgery in November, and then December I started chemotherapy for a year.
And not only chemo, but radiation.
Yeah, so that was so we did chemo, and then a little bit later we did radiation. And that's a picture of, so when they do it, they have to measure your, especially with your brain.
Does that go on your face or your head?
That goes over my face.
Wow.
And then they basically map your whole brain, and they figure out where you can see that little
the X there?
X there, that's where they would shoot the radiation through to hit the tumor and only the tumor, just because they don't want to radiate other parts of your brain, obviously.
And eventually, do you have the one that says it's, the name of it? Where's that slide? Yeah, that one here. So, Lucky, I don't know why Lucky's up there, but again, it's Marty's last name. How do you say that word?
Oligodendroglioma.
Yeah, okay.
And the reason I say I'm lucky is so I was given 12 years to live at that point in time, and that's never perfect, so never believe what they say on that always. But a lot of tumors, are way, way worse, and people can barely live 2 years past that. So
glioblastoma is the one. We've had a number of families in the church.
So if you have that, there's 2 out of 5 people live more than 2 years. So that one's really, there's basically really not a whole lot of hope there. Whereas mine was a grade 2, so it was a slower growing, and they actually felt like thought that it had been growing for quite some time.
So 12 years, who knows from when it starts growing or when they find it or whatever. But you have beat that because we're at 13 now.
I'm at 13, yep.
And yeah. And many of you remember when David came and they said, hey, this thing is shrunk, looks good, you know, praise God, and here we rejoice as a church. And you go through a number of years where you and Brian are back hiking
Yeah, I
together.
was back climbing again and doing fun stuff.
Show that tiger's tooth, or what is that called?
Shark fin tower.
Yeah, shark fin. Okay, whatever. Tiger's tooth. Yeah. And Brian would not take me up that one, nor would you, but love you guys anyway.
But it was great because I got to get out there, and then I shared the love of my climbing with both my kids. I've got 2 boys.
Who were 4 and 7 when you were diagnosed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then they started to go out with me in the woods, and we had a blast. So for me, I got a lot of extra time with them
Yeah.
that possibly I shouldn't have gotten.